I still remember the first time I realized something was wrong. It was late on a Tuesday evening, the kind of night when most people were home having dinner with their families. But me? I was still at the office, surrounded by spreadsheets, quarterly forecasts, and glowing screens. I had been with the company for 9 years, long enough to know every corner of our operations and every client expectation by heart. Numbers were my language, and accuracy was my pride. But that night, the numbers didn't make sense. At first, I thought I was overtired. I blinked, rubbed my temples, and recalculated. But no matter how many times I ran the formulas, they were wrong. Ridiculously wrong. Losses where there should have been gains, contracts that suddenly appeared unprofitable, invoices that had never crossed my desk. It wasn't just one report. It was all of them. That's when my stomach dropped. Someone had tampered with my work. The next morning, I walked into the office a little earlier than usual. I wanted to check the files on the shared drive before anyone else arrived. As I logged in, I noticed something odd. The last person who had accessed the files wasn't me. It was Ryan Cole, the CEO's son. He had only joined the company 3 months ago, parachuted straight into a management role he hadn't earned. He didn't know the first thing about finance or client accounts, but he strutted around like he owned the place. Most people kept quiet, choosing to tolerate his arrogance because of who his father was. But I hadn't. 2 weeks earlier, during a strategy meeting, Ryan had mocked one of my colleagues, a junior analyst who had made a small mistake on a projection. Ryan laughed in front of everyone and said, "Maybe we should hire people who can actually count." I couldn't hold back. I told him sharply that belittling employees wasn't leadership. It was bullying. The room had gone silent. Ryan had smirked, but his eyes told me everything. He wasn't going to forget that. And now here I was, staring at corrupted numbers in my reports, all last edited by him. By 9 a.m., the office was buzzing. I tried to keep calm, but my chest felt heavy, like I was walking around with a secret grenade that could go off at any second. I didn't have to wait long. At 10:15 sharp, my boss, Mr. Harrison, stormed into my office. His face was red, and he slapped a stack of printed spreadsheets onto my desk. "Lisa," he barked, "these mistakes are unacceptable. What happened here?" I froze for a second, my hands hovering above my keyboard. I wanted to explain, to defend myself, but something in his tone told me he wasn't here for excuses. He was here for blood. My heart pounded in my ears as I glanced at the papers. The same errors I had discovered last night stared back at me. Numbers twisted beyond recognition. I looked up at him, steadying my voice. "Mr. Harrison," I said carefully, "I need you to take a closer look before you accuse me. These aren't mistakes. They're alterations." He frowned, confusion flickering across his face, but only for a moment before frustration took over. "Alterations? Are you saying someone else did this?" I didn't answer right away. Instead, I reached into my bag and pulled out a small USB drive. I slid it across the table slowly, deliberately. "What's this?" he asked, his voice sharp. "Proof," I replied. He hesitated, narrowing his eyes at me before finally plugging it into his laptop. I watched as his expression shifted, his skin paling as file after file opened on the screen. I had anticipated this moment. The USB contained system logs I had quietly backed up the night before. Timestamps, usernames, and access histories. Every single change in my reports traced back to one account. Ryan Cole. Mr. Harrison's hands tightened around the mouse. His jaw clenched as he scrolled through the evidence, his face growing whiter with every click. The room was silent except for the hum of the computer. Finally, he leaned back in his chair, staring at me as if seeing me for the first time. "Lisa, where did you get this?" I met his gaze evenly. "From the audit trail. I've been documenting every suspicious change since last week." He looked down again, disbelief etched into his features. "Ryan," he muttered under his breath. I didn't say anything. I didn't have to. For a brief moment, I thought he might apologize. might admit that he'd been too quick to accuse me. But instead, he pinched the bridge of his nose and exhaled slowly. "You have no idea what you've just stepped into," he said finally, his voice low. And just like that, the game had changed. Mr. Harrison's words echoed in my head. "You have no idea what you've just stepped into." I sat frozen in my chair, watching him rub his temples as if the weight of the company had just collapsed onto his shoulders. The silence was suffocating. Finally, he spoke again, his voice quieter this time. "Lisa, listen to me carefully. Do not talk about this with anyone. Not your team, not your colleagues, no one." My brows furrowed. "Why not?" "You saw the proof yourself. Ryan altered my work. He tried to frame me." Harrison's eyes darted to the closed door, then back to me. "Because he's not just anyone. He's the CEO's son. If this blows up the wrong way, it won't be him they sacrifice. It'll be you." I swallowed hard. His words stung because they felt true. In this world, nepotism wasn't just an ugly rumor. It was survival. Still, something inside me rebelled. Why should I carry the blame for his mess? "Mr. Harrison," I said firmly, "I won't be the scapegoat. I've worked too hard for this." He sighed, leaning back in his chair. For a moment, I saw something almost like sympathy in his eyes. But then his expression hardened again. "You need to play this smart. I'll handle Ryan. For now, keep your head down. Focus on your work." I wanted to argue, but I didn't. Instead, I nodded, though my chest burned with frustration. The rest of that day dragged like a nightmare. Whispers followed me through the halls. I could feel eyes on me whenever I passed. At lunch, 2 analysts went quiet the moment I walked into the break room. It was obvious Ryan had already started spinning his version of the story. By 3 p.m., the tension was unbearable. That's when Nicole, a colleague from marketing I'd known for years, slipped into my office. She closed the door quickly, her voice low. "Lisa, what's going on? People are saying you botched the quarterly reports. Ryan's been telling anyone who'll listen that you've lost your grip." I clenched my jaw. "That's a lie." She studied me, hesitant. "Then why aren't you defending yourself?" I hesitated, weighing Harrison's warning in my mind. "Because sometimes the truth needs the right timing. And trust me, Nicole, Ryan won't get away with this." Her eyes widened, curiosity mixing with concern, but she didn't press further. She just gave my hand a squeeze before slipping back out. That evening, long after most people had left, I sat alone at my desk, staring at the dim glow of my monitor. I replayed the entire day in my mind. Harrison's warning, the whispers, Ryan's smear campaign already taking root. I should have been furious, but what I felt most was determination. I wasn't going to let Ryan define me. I had spent nearly a decade building this department. I had trained most of the people now running client accounts. My numbers had saved contracts others thought were dead. And now some spoiled man-boy thought he could undo all of that with a few altered spreadsheets? Number not this time. I opened my private folder on my laptop, the one I had started keeping after noticing the first odd changes. Inside were dozens of screenshots, time-stamped logs, and even emails Ryan had corrected in ways that made no sense. Piece by piece, I had built a paper trail. Enough to prove that what was happening wasn't incompetence. It was sabotage. Still, one question haunted me. Why? Yes, I had embarrassed him in that meeting 2 weeks ago. But was his ego really so fragile he'd risk everything to destroy me? Or was there more at play here? The next morning answered that question. I arrived early again, hoping to get ahead of whatever storm Ryan was brewing. As I settled in, I overheard voices drifting from the conference room down the hall. Ryan's voice, sharp and mocking, carried through the glass walls. "She's unstable," he said. "Ever since the divorce, she's been slipping. Numbers don't lie. We can't afford someone like that handling clients." My stomach turned to ice. Divorce? He was using my personal life now? Another voice chimed in, one of the junior managers. "But Lisa's been here for years. She closed the Kingsford account. She's reliable." Ryan laughed. Reliable? She's a liability. Trust me, it's only a matter of time before she cracks completely. I stood frozen in the hallway, every word cutting deeper. He wasn't just sabotaging my work. He was building a narrative, piece by piece, designed to erase me. I walked away quietly before anyone noticed me listening. My hands trembled, but not from fear, from resolve. By noon, I was called into another meeting with Mr. Harrison. He looked weary, dark circles under his eyes. "Lisa, I've spoken with Ryan," he said carefully. "He claims your reports were simply errors, mistakes you're now trying to cover up. He even suggested you might be struggling personally." The air in the room thickened. "He's lying," I said flatly. Harrison nodded slowly. "I believe you. But belief isn't enough in this business. You need to be ready for what's coming." I leaned forward. "Then let me be clear. I've kept every record, every log. If he thinks he can bury me with stories, he's in for a surprise." Harrison studied me for a long moment, then gave a small, almost imperceptible smile. "Good, because I think you're going to need it." That night, as I left the office, my phone buzzed with a message from an unknown number. My breath caught as I read it. "Stay quiet, Lisa, or you'll regret it." For the first time since this started, I realized Ryan wasn't just playing office games. He was escalating, and I had to be ready. The message burned on my phone screen. "Stay quiet, Lisa, or you'll regret it." For a long moment, I just stood there in the dim office parking lot, the hum of the streetlights filling the silence. My first instinct was to laugh. How ridiculous that Ryan thought an anonymous threat would scare me into silence. But underneath the anger, a chill ran through me. This wasn't just childish sabotage anymore. He was cornered, and desperate men made dangerous choices. I slipped the phone back into my purse, my mind already racing. I had two options: ignore it and hope he'd get bored, or do what I'd always done: document everything. I chose the latter. When I got home that night, I pulled out the small black notebook I had been keeping for weeks. Each page was filled with dates, times, and descriptions of every suspicious change, every whisper I'd overheard, every reaction I'd seen in the office. Now I added one more line. Threat received. Unknown number, 9:47 p.m. The next morning, I arrived early again. My stomach knotted as I pushed open the glass doors to the lobby, half expecting Ryan to be waiting there with another smirk or some fresh humiliation. But the lobby was empty. For once, it was quiet. Still, the calm didn't last. By mid-morning, word spread that the quarterly review with the board had been moved up a week. Normally, I would have been in the center of preparing those reports. This time, Ryan was leading the process. He was determined to use those doctored numbers to paint a story. At 11 o'clock, Nicole appeared in my office again. She shut the door softly, her expression troubled. "Lisa, I think you should know. Ryan's been telling the board you've lost focus. He said you're—" She hesitated, lowering her voice. "Unstable. He's pushing hard for you to be replaced." I let out a slow breath. "He's building a case, one piece of fiction at a time." Her brow furrowed. "Can't you go straight to Mr. Cole? He'd listen to you, wouldn't he?" I shook my head. "Not yet. If I go too early without enough proof, it'll look like I'm the one stirring drama. I need everything airtight before I make a move." Nicole studied me for a moment, then nodded. "Then make it airtight. Because Ryan's not slowing down." That afternoon, I requested IT to run a trace on the threatening message. It was a long shot, but to my surprise, the technician called me later that day. "Lisa, the number was a prepaid SIM. Untraceable. But—" His voice dropped lower. "The phone used to send it logged into the company Wi-Fi yesterday. Someone sent it from inside the office." The puzzle pieces were falling into place. Ryan wasn't just reckless. He was sloppy. I went home that night and backed up every file I had onto two separate encrypted drives. One I kept hidden in my apartment, the other I stored in my car. If Ryan wanted to escalate, I'd be ready. 2 days later, the board review loomed closer. The office buzzed with nervous energy. Assistants running with stacks of paper, executives whispering in corners. I kept to myself, quietly working, quietly watching. That's when I overheard something that made my blood run cold. Passing by the copy room, I caught Ryan's voice again, low and conspiratorial. "She'll crack under pressure," he was saying to one of the junior executives. "When the board sees her fall apart, they'll have no choice but to let her go. Trust me, I've got this handled." The junior executive didn't respond. He just nodded weakly, and Ryan clapped him on the shoulder before striding out. I slipped away before anyone saw me, my pulse racing. He wasn't just sabotaging my work. He was planning a public spectacle. He wanted me humiliated in front of the board. That night, I didn't sleep. I sat at my kitchen table with my laptop open, reviewing everything. The audit logs, the spreadsheets, the screenshots, even recordings from my phone of Ryan's insults in the hallway. Piece by piece, I assembled them into a timeline so clear a child could follow it. But the final piece was still missing. A direct link between Ryan and the altered files. I had logs that showed his account, but accounts could be argued. It wasn't me. It was my assistant. That's what he'd say. And then, just before midnight, I remembered something. 3 weeks earlier, during one of his arrogant speeches in the break room, Ryan had bragged that he never logged out of his computer because passwords are for people who don't matter. At the time, I'd rolled my eyes. Now, it was my key. If IT could confirm his device had been the one logged in during the alterations, not just his account, it would close the loop. The proof would be irrefutable. I fired off a late-night request to the systems team, attaching the dates and times I had collected. Then I closed my laptop, sat back in my chair, and whispered to myself, "Let him think I'm cornered. Let him think he's winning." The next morning, my phone buzzed with an email from IT. My hands shook as I opened it. Every alteration had been made from Ryan's personal workstation, his laptop, his logins, his device. I exhaled slowly, my chest finally easing for the first time in weeks. The missing piece was mine. Now, it wasn't just about defending myself anymore. It was about exposing him for what he really was. And with the board meeting just days away, I knew exactly when and how to strike. The IT email was still open at 7:30 a.m., every change traced to Ryan's laptop. I printed the message, access logs, and my timeline, sent an encrypted copy to compliance, then slid everything into a plain folder. At 8:45, Mr. Harrison paused at my door. "You ready?" "As I'll ever be." "Facts only," he said, eyeing the folder. By 9 a.m., the boardroom was full. Directors, general counsel, Mr. Cole at the head, Ryan to his right. I took a chair against the glass wall. The first slide, Q2 variances. Ryan began smoothly. "We've identified recurring errors in finance. Corrective actions are underway." Mr. Cole's tone was neutral. "Walk us through the numbers." Ryan clicked through charts that matched the doctored files. Red arrows, missed targets, a neat story of decline. "Lisa," Mr. Cole said, turning to me, "these are your reports. Anything to add?" "Yes." I set the folder between Mr. Cole and counsel. These variances come from edits made after sign-off. IT records show user, device, and timestamps for each change. Ryan laughed under his breath. "She's covering her tracks." The edits originated from Mr. Cole Jr.'s workstation. I slid a single page forward, 3 lines highlighted. Counsel scanned quickly. "We should verify with IT." "I asked them to be on standby," I said. A knock. Harrison opened the door. Daniel from Systems entered. "We confirmed device IDs and session tokens," he said. "The changes came from Ryan Cole's laptop while docked at his desk. Badge records place him in the building at those times." "Anyone could have used my machine," Ryan said. "Your token was active," Daniel replied. "Auto lock disabled. Same session across all events." I placed another sheet on the table. "Here are before and after files with checksums, plus the reversion commits I made when I detected the changes. And here is IT's email confirming device-level attribution. I hesitated. I also received an anonymous text telling me to stay quiet. IT traced the phone to company Wi-Fi the afternoon it was sent. For the first time, Mr. Cole looked tired. He turned to his son. Ryan? Ryan spread his hands. This is theater. She's been erratic for months. Ask her team. My team can produce any ticket you want, I said. All deadlines met. The audit trail is here. I tapped the folder. Facts, not adjectives. Silence settled. Counsel spoke. We recommend immediate preservation of data and a formal internal investigation. Do it, Mr. Cole said. He turned to Harrison. Lisa remains in role. Reassign report ownership temporarily. No performance flags pending the outcome. Ryan's chair scraped. You're taking her side over your own. Sit, Mr. Cole said quietly. The meeting stumbled through 2 more agenda items. No one was listening. When we adjourned, most of the board filed out quickly. Mr. Cole stayed seated, staring at the highlighted lines. Lisa, he said, finally looking up. Thank you for documenting this. You shouldn't have had to do it alone. I wasn't alone, I said. Systems helped, and Mr. Harrison. Harrison gave a brief, apologetic nod. Mr. Cole exhaled. Security will escort you to your car this week. That won't be necessary, I started, then stopped. Thank you. In the hallway, Nicole waited near the elevators, eyes questioning. I mouthed, later. In my office, I closed the door and sat until my hands stopped shaking. Relief wasn't the feeling. Not yet. At noon, an email from counsel hit. Hold notice, do not alter, delete, or destroy any potentially relevant materials. It went to half the leadership team. 10 minutes later, facilities confirmed Ryan's badge had been deactivated, pending review. I didn't smile. I wrote both times in my notebook. Documentation wasn't just a habit anymore. It was a boundary. Around 3, Harrison stepped in. He's been asked to work from home, he said. Suspended? Not officially yet. I nodded. Then I'll keep my head down and keep working. He hesitated. Lisa, I'm sorry I came at you the way I did. You came with the information you had? I said. Now we have the rest. He left. I looked at the spreadsheet on my screen. The real one, every cell balanced to the penny, and felt something ease. Numbers are boring until someone lies about them. Then they become a map. Before shutting down, I added 2 more items to my timeline and sent counsel a note offering to sit for questions and provide my drives. Transparent, complete, calm. At 6:12 p.m., a new message from an unknown number lit my phone. You think this is over? I took a screenshot, saved it to the folder, and powered the phone off. No, I thought. It wasn't over. But for the first time, I wasn't the one on the edge. 12 days after the boardroom meeting, I sat in a small conference room with a carafe of stale coffee and a stack of my own notes. Legal, compliance, and a quiet HR rep took seats across from me. It didn't feel like a showdown. It felt like an audit. Slow, methodical, unforgiving. I handed over both encrypted drives and my notebook. Dates, times, file hashes, email headers, the anonymous text screenshots. They asked measured questions. I answered with facts. No adjectives, no speculation. When they finished, the HR rep, soft-spoken, meticulous, asked one last thing. Do you feel safe at work? I paused, then nodded. I feel prepared. 2 days later, security collected the assistant's laptop. The rumor mill churned, but I stayed at my desk and closed out the week's reconciliations like nothing had happened. Numbers, at least, are honest when you let them be. The formal update landed the following Tuesday at 9:10 a.m., subject line. Investigation findings. Next steps. It went to the board, council, and a handful of senior leaders. Harrison appeared at my door within minutes. They want to see you. The boardroom felt different this time. Less oxygen, more clarity. Mr. Cole stood, hands on the back of his chair, a file in front of him. He didn't make a speech. "Lisa," he said, "we reviewed the logs, the device data, and the network records. Multiple policy violations occurred, falsifying financial documents, interfering with internal controls, and retaliation. The anonymous message came from a device authenticated to the guest network by someone using Ryan's executive suite credentials. We cannot prove he pressed send." He gestured to the file. "But we can prove the altered reports came from his machine under his session in our building." He sat. Counsel picked up. "Effective immediately, Ryan Cole is no longer employed here. The assistant is terminated for cause. We've filed preservation requests with vendors and are implementing additional controls." Silence settled, the honest kind that comes after bad weather clears. Mr. Cole looked older than I'd ever seen him. "You should not have had to carry this," he said. "I'm sorry." I nodded once. "Thank you." They dismissed me with next steps. IT upgrades, access reviews, temporary dual approval for all report sign-offs, and a request that I help draft the new process. Work I could do in my sleep, but wouldn't. Not this time. This time it would be built to outlast personalities. By afternoon, facilities had removed the nameplate from the executive suite down the hall. HR scheduled listening sessions. Compliance pushed a mandatory training on version control. Auto-lock timers were enforced company-wide. People grumbled about the inconvenience. I didn't. Inconvenience is cheaper than repair. That evening, as I packed my bag, Nicole leaned on the doorframe. "Is it true?" I didn't give her gossip. I gave her the only thing I had for certain. "Controls are changing." Her eyes softened. "You okay?" "I'm tired," I said, and meant it. "But I'm okay." 3 days later, Mr. Cole called me into his office. No polished speeches, no flattery, just a paper on his desk and a pen beside it. "We need you to lead client finance and reporting on an interim basis," he said. "Build the controls. Rebuild the trust. Choose your team." "I'll need authority in writing," I said. "Clear scope, no backdoors." "You'll have it." He slid the letter across to me. "And you'll report directly to me until this is stable." I read every line. Interim title, budget, head count. Final sign-off power with documented escalation paths. No hidden strings. I signed, then asked for an hour to send an outline. In my office, I drafted what I wished had existed before. Immutable versioning, restricted edit rights, device-bound sessions, quarterly access reviews, and a simple rule. No single person can both prepare and approve a report. I added something else, small but essential. A confidential route for anyone who noticed irregularities to escalate without fear. I pressed send. The weeks that followed weren't dramatic. They were disciplined. We rebuilt spreadsheets from scratch, moved source data into a controlled repository, and trained every manager on how to read an audit trail. People pushed back. "It slows us down." I repeated the same line until it stuck. "Accuracy is speed you don't have to buy twice." On a Wednesday afternoon, I found the last loose thread. A partner had quietly received one of the corrupted reports 3 weeks prior. I called him myself, apologized for the confusion, and sent the corrected file with a written explanation of our new process. He thanked me for the candor. Trust isn't won with perfect numbers. It's won with accountability when they aren't. Harrison stopped by more often now. Less frantic, more present. One day he stood by the window, hands in his pockets. "I misread you," he said. "I saw smoke and blamed the closest match." "You corrected it," I said. "That's leadership, too." He smiled, a small human smile. "Don't tell anyone." On a quiet Friday, I opened my notebook and turned to the first entry about odd changes. I added the last line at the bottom of the page, the only sentence I wrote without a timestamp. Facts are not loud, but they outlast noise. I closed the cover and slid it into the drawer. Here's what I didn't feel. Triumph. That would have been easy and untrue. What I felt was steadiness. I had not won a game. I had maintained a standard. There's a difference. That night, I walked past the glass conference room where so much of this began. The table was empty, the screens dark. For the first time in months, the building felt like a place where work could simply be work. People will tell you revenge is the point of stories like mine. It isn't. The point is boundaries. The point is telling the truth carefully, writing it down and standing inside it when it's tested. The point is knowing your value without screaming it and insisting that the systems around you reflect it. Numbers don't protect you. People do. Processes do. Your own spine does. I turned off the light and went home. Monday would bring new deadlines, new audits, new friction. But the ledger balanced again, and this time it wasn't luck. It was design.